Thank you for your patience, everybody. Just had a little hiccup on one of the platforms, but we're all good. Seems like I inputted some information wrong. All good, though. Just as a reminder before we get started, this channel is for educational purposes only, or perhaps in the eyes of the law, entertainment purposes only. I don't know which one it is, but cover all our bases, right? I want to give a big hello out there to Emil, Nightrot, Shannon, Joshua, Vinyl, Adam, Crystal. Let's see, Plucking, Chang, and True Detective, John Doe, and anyone else out there today. Hope you're all doing well. Bear with me one moment here. All right. So, anyways, welcome back to Forever Conscious Research Channel. Hope you are having a good start to your weekend. And today we're going to be going over a pretty loaded near-death experience. This one was posted on Thantos TV in the English translation section, or English translation channel that they have. So shout out to them. They do a lot of great work, and they get around. They really do. They do some great work. So for your own research, I highly recommend checking out their channel. So we're going to be going over Manuela's NDE. Really, the love bomb up front and center. As you can see in the video, felt like, I'm not going to say the word, kind of like a gratification, like an explosion of emotions to which one completely surrenders and dissolves into. So you surrender and dissolve into it. And this is something we've talked about a zillion times. They openly expose this stuff to us constantly. I mean, it's just a matter of how they're wording it, right? That's the only difference. It felt like immersing oneself in pleasant, warm water, but it felt more like, I'm sorry, I'm reading this wrong. It says it felt like immersing oneself in a pleasant, warm water, but it felt more like a wax. And it said that the pool had felt like it opened her heart. I felt this powerful flow of love emanating from me and being poured into me. It felt like a massive exchange of pure love. I felt attracted to this stream of love and expanded into this light. It amounted to this explosion of emotions. And I think that's a key thing right there, right? An explosion of emotions. Remember, every single NDE, well, I can't say every, but almost anyone that experiences the love and light version of this, they are always saying to us, you know, it's more love than they can possibly compare to what is experienced on Earth. And I know I bring this up constantly, but it has to be driven home because, you know, there's still a bunch of new folks coming in and stuff like that. So think about, like, for those of you that are mothers, think about the birth of your children. And, you know, that's like the pinnacle loving moment that a woman can have. And maybe even a father, right? Or like the day you get married or the day you fall in love, stuff like that. Multiply that by, you know, 100,000, 10,000, whatever the case may be. And it cannot be compared. And the other thing we always hear in NDEs is like, oh, you know, I knew everything. You know, I had the answers to the universe and this and that. But what do we see in the thumbnail here, my friend? It says it was an emotional knowing. An emotional knowing. So this is the drugging, right? The light, the love and light aspect to all of this is literally the equivalent of a drug dealer. We've seen it over and over and over and over again. Rationality, discernment, open-mindedness, all of that stuff flies out the window because of the power that the light yields, the love yields, the reuniting of friends and family or deities. You pick it. It's always the same playbook over and over and over again. And that's, you know, thankfully we have that. It shows that this is a program running and that it's designed to basically drug us into submission and overload us with a sensory experience. So let's get into this. I think you're really, really going to like this one. There's a lot to unpack. So I'm going to play maybe like the first 10 seconds. Then I got to mute it for a second because there's some copyright issues. And then we'll be into it in about maybe 40 seconds to a minute from now. So let's do this.
The suction pulled me, like, upward, and all of a sudden I was outside my body. I saw myself from above as they operated on me.
Just going to be muted for about 20 seconds, maybe. Now, one thing when I first ran across this story, she became a yoga instructor afterwards. All right. So this wasn't something that she had inside of her, foreknowledge before she experienced it. So I think that's an important thing to just put out there for everybody.
Als therapeutische Yogalehrerin.
Ms. Fazzi, you're working as a therapeutic yoga instructor, craniosacral therapist, and offer further therapeutic modalities as well. The reason for your health-related activities is a near-death experience that you had as a young lady following a horribly failed routine surgery. Please share with our audience what happened back then.
Also, ich war zuerst Floristin, bevor ich all die anderen Ausbildungen gemacht habe.
I used to work as a florist before undertaking further vocational education later in life. I had my experience during my apprenticeship. On that day, I suddenly experienced severe abdominal pain and was no longer able to stand upright. I called my boyfriend, who came to pick me up. We went to a hospital where they diagnosed an ovarian cyst of 5 centimeters in diameter. And as I said, they strongly advised emergency surgery right away because there was an acute risk that this cyst would rotate around its axis and then would have blocked the blood flow to my ovaries. I didn't have much of an option. I had to stay there. They performed the surgery. I was informed that this was a routine procedure and I would be discharged from hospital on the following day. During the surgery, the operating surgeon unfortunately injured surrounding tissue of the large intestine, which resulted in secondary hemorrhaging, as at first went unnoticed. After a few hours, I was in a huge amount of pain. At first, I was administered higher doses of pain relief medication, to a degree that almost made me pass out. And medical staff noticed that my hemoglobin levels were decreasing. They then decided to perform further surgery and made the mistake of operating on me via laparoscopy. This is a minimally invasive procedure and uses only small scissors and cameras. The abdominal tract is expanded by pumping gas into it in order to gain a better view while operating.
Und das war eigentlich der Fehler, eben diese Art, also diese Technik zu benutzen, noch einmal bei schon...
It was a mistake to use this method with previously ruptured tissue. Because of the pressure, the tissue that had already been ruptured was further injured.
Da kam es eigentlich zur Katastrophe.
Then things took a catastrophic turn and massive internal bleeding occurred.
Sie haben mir versucht, das Blut, also halt Ersatzblut reinzu.
They attempted to replace the lost blood at first,
Es ist eigentlich schneller.
but by then I was losing blood faster than they could replace it.
Also mein damaliger Lebenspartner war
My partner at that time witnessed the surgery and watched as they tried to collect the blood dripping from the bed in a kidney dish.
So the catastrophe didn't happen during your surgery, but afterwards?
beides.
It was during the surgery and post-operative that the bleeding occurred.
Ja, hat es so rausgeblutet. Und
Since they were unable to stop the bleeding, they had to do an emergency transfer to a different hospital.
in ein anderes Spital. Und da also schon beim Übergang, wo ich in den Krankenwagen verlegt wurde, habe ich...
While I was being rushed to the ambulance, I became aware that I was going to die.
konnte mich nicht mehr konzentrieren.
I became lighter and lighter and was no longer able to focus my attention. And I had an inner knowledge that I was now going to die.
So she had an inner knowledge that she was already going to die. This is something that pops up, you know, it's not obviously every experience or case, but it's somewhat common. It really is. There's like this inner knowing. Sometimes it's dream premonition. We went over, I think, a couple of those fairly recently in the last couple months. And they appear, right? They're, it's like, I think there's a couple things going on. I think it's like the life script. I think it's like the inner essence, also kind of like this red flag going off, a siren like blaring inside someone's head that kind of gives them the heads up that, hey, something's wrong, something's going to happen. And what's interesting is what would happen if they decided to veer off course and shut that all down, or at least attempt to. Going with your gut. I mean, I think one of the biggest things we can do is betray our gut feeling, because more often than not, it's right. Not going to be right every time, but more often than not, it's going to provide the truth, or at least some sort of guidance.
They tried to keep me awake by tapping my cheeks, and they kept saying, "Please look at us and speak with us." I felt an unquenchable thirst, but wasn't allowed to drink. I remember that. With sirens and flashing blue lights, the ambulance took me straight to a bigger hospital with an intensive care unit. and we went straight into the underground emergency unit, like in the movies. That's how I experienced it. All I could say was, I don't want to die. I really felt that I was dying now. And in that moment, thoughts crossed your mind, such as my parents, who were on vacation at the time, and how I wouldn't get to see them anymore. I then also became aware of the fact that I had always tried to accommodate other people's expectations of me throughout my life.
Now, see, that's an interesting moment right there, right? Think of it this way. So if you have, let's just say you're at the time of natural death, or if you had something like a OBE or an NDE, that seems like the crossroads moment, right? She's starting to think about her parents and how they'll make in all of this. But in the same kind of reflection, she's thinking about how she could have done things better. That's got, you know, kind of the Matrix written all over it, right? It's like, hey, like you still have work to do, right? These are like some sort of blasted or inserted thought processes that are going out there. But at the same time, she, you know, it's like, it's what can become of that? It could be, hey, get rid of all attachments in that moment. Don't worry about your Earth life. Hey, you left Earth. You're done. It's over. But no, it's like the default is to think of the parents and think about what you could have done better for yourself back on Earth. And, you know, so she's thinking about herself, but only in the context of earthly life. That's the sad part. It's like, so if someone kind of has the prerequisite of understanding how the attachments work in all this, theoretically, they could liberate themselves. But it doesn't go that way, unfortunately.
You could say I'd always been the well-behaved student, as it were. It became apparent to me in that moment that I hadn't really lived my life at all up to this point. So when we entered the emergency unit, and as I was put under anesthesia right away, they performed an abdominal incision with a scalpel. I remember that I was awake in spite of the anesthesia, and I stared at this scalpel and watched them cut me open. But I didn't feel any pain. It was still shocking for me to watch them cut open my skin. I screamed and told them I'm awake. I wanted to let them know that I could see everything that was going on. It seems to me that I must have lifted my head a little. I then noticed someone's hand pushing my head back. Then a mask appeared and I passed out again. Everything went dark again. Next, I was pulled away by suction. This suction draft pulled me upward, and all of a sudden I was outside my body. I viewed myself from above and watched how they were operating on me. I didn't understand this. Why am I looking down upon myself from above? I clearly recognized this as being my body below, and that they were operating on me. I also registered the thoughts of those present in the room. I was kind of conscious and capable of thinking, and remember asking myself, am I dead now? But I feel fine. Well, I wasn't in pain and actually felt well. and I wanted to answer them as I could perceive their thoughts. I wanted to talk to the physicians and let them know, I'm fine, you can stop now.
What thoughts, for instance, did you perceive?
Ja, also eine Frau, die war sehr besorgt.
One lady was very concerned, the men less so. They simply focused on the task at hand. One man thought of soccer games, that was strange.
Es war noch speziell. Ja, jeder hat sich
Their feelings differed a lot. But this one lady, I could feel that she was really concerned for me. The operating surgeon was focusing hard on the surgery.
How did you perceive this view on yourself? Was it like seeing yourself in a movie or in a mirror? Or was this perception of an entirely different quality altogether?
It was associated with both of these aspects. On the one hand, I had normal vision, as if I was looking through my eyes, but my field of vision was widely augmented. The field of vision was almost infinite. I possessed a kind of shell, but no physical body. I was sort of suspended in mid-air. Other than that, the quality of my perception was much more fine-grained, a lot clearer and much more intense, a lot more immediate.
Also einfach auch viel direkter. Es ist wie, und auch wenn ich irgendwie nur gedacht habe,
When I had a thought, like something along the lines of, I'll go see that person, I would sort of find myself immediately with them. I was able to move about very quickly. It was a very unfamiliar experience. Regarding my conscious thinking, I was able to think in the exact same way as I do now. My perception was a lot clearer and more direct than usual.
What happened next?
I was surprised and a little shocked too, because I thought to myself, am I dead now? And no one was able to answer that. And that gave me a slight bout of anxiety. Exactly at that moment, everything went dark again, and I was pulled into this suction. Then I saw my life pass by in a kind of retrospective. And this time it seemed like a movie, as you remarked earlier.
This time it seemed like a movie. Life review.
From that moment, all the way back until my birth, I could see all the emotionally significant or very moving moments that I had experienced in my life.
Now, see, she has a little bit of a different life review. It is lacking. I guess we'll just say the judgment, the shame aspect of things. At least from what I recall. Maybe I'm wrong, but let's just continue.
That I had experienced in my life. In particular, all those moments involving love.
Oh, in particular.
When others and I were emotionally touching each other in some way. Those kinds of situations. I didn't see negative events in this retrospective except for my birth. For example, there was one very significant moment that I saw again. My father is originally from Italy. He had a very difficult childhood and had to leave his family at age 13 and move to Switzerland, where an uncle of his lived. He moved in with his uncle to find work there because back in Italy his single mother was raising 7 children. He was simply forced to work and send money home. Growing up, I remember my father as being emotionally very distant. He would never hug me or provide me with a feeling of physical proximity or comfort. For example, he would never play with us children. This kind of casual communication parents typically have with an infant, it was entirely missing. As a child, I did not really have any idea as to why things were this way. It was simply a sad experience for me, because I noticed things being quite different in other families. Exactly at this moment, when this retrospective happened, I experienced a moment with my father who had returned home. I was still an infant. I just started to take my first steps on my own. The weather was beautiful.
Okay, so this is, look, she has this lacking of love and acceptance, like common decency that should be coming from her father. All right. But the father also had it rough growing up. And this is kind of goes to the early childhood development thing that I talk about fairly often. There's if you're new to the channel and haven't watched a trailer, which is, what is the purpose of this? Like if you go through that video, then the video that will pop up next in that spot is like I guess you can call it the backup trailer. It goes on about early childhood development. And I talk about and show examples of the research that is out there on this topic and how intergenerational indoctrination and trauma carries over and over and over again, right? It's difficult. It's very, very hard to break the cycle, especially because humanity has been deprived of this very important information. So, the Matrix is providing that the lost love inside of her that she craved from her father during her NDE. I'm sorry, I just got to say it. And, if Manuela is watching or anyone else kind of, takes this the wrong way, like it's diabolical stuff. It really is. It's providing her the outlet that she desperately needs. It's clear she is clearly telling us this is something that bothered her, and understandably so. But the Matrix is providing that experience because it's such a formative thing within her. And what happens in NDEs? They are customized to the experiencer. All the top researchers in the NDE field are in agreement, in unison, that the experience that one has in an NDE is customized to the individual. It's customized to them because it wants to make sure that it wins them over. That's the sad part. So it's just wrong, but what it does is keeps the attachments going. It keeps the soul group thing going, and it prevents or distracts, better mind you, from Manuela escaping, right? And going her own way through the path of non-interference, sovereignty, and liberation.
I just started to take my first steps on my own. The weather was beautiful. It was probably right around the beginning of summer. I was sitting outside in a meadow. There was an upward slope. He came home in a car, and I already consciously noticed, this is my father. I was filled with joy, and I also perceived his joy at coming home and seeing me. He got out of the car and walked towards me. I turned around to meet him. These were really the very first steps I took. I really experienced this moment anew. How I got up, and all of a sudden I felt as if I was twice as tall, but was very unsteady on my feet. He rushed towards me and reached under my arms, lifted me up. I could feel his joy and love for me. He was so incredibly proud of me at this moment, of me taking my first steps towards him. That's when I felt his genuine emotions, and I also perceived his true love for me. During my childhood, I never physically experienced anything like this from him. This moment was incredibly precious to me.
So, I mean, really, talk about just setting up the perfect scene for her. You know, this is what she craved as a child. And this is the only moment that, you know, she sees as reassuring. It's so sad.
In that moment, not only did I recognize his genuine feelings for me, I also had an immediate understanding as to why he used to be completely different with me at other times. This moment came with a lot of additional information. I was able to perceive the entire range of his emotions, not just mine. I felt as if I was emotionally both people at the same time. This enhanced perception continued with other people in my life.
Okay, so this is an important point to point out too, right? I mean, so she is experiencing her father's, you know, life script, the difficulties that he had as an explanation for the neglect that she experienced, right? And then she also goes on to say that it happened with others and you know, not necessarily with the same exact issues, but they were, you know, in a sense, overwhelmingly positive from everything we can tell so far. And it's all about the hook, right? Reel them in, give them what they want, give them what they expect, so that no questions are asked.
Enhanced perception continued with other people in my life. My perception encompassed both my feelings and those of the other person in their respective situations.
So you had the capability of knowing the biography of the particular person with whom you emotionally connected?
I wouldn't say that I knew their entire lives in detail, but I had information as to the reasons why they had evolved to become this particular type of person.
So, look, you know, let's just call it what it is. I hate using it in this context, but it's just the excuse train, right? It's the excuse train. It doesn't mean that her father was a bad guy or anything like that. It's how one situation can lead to another, but it has everything to do with the bait and switch of the experience, so that they believe in it, so that they go back to their body, so that they don't stand up for themselves at some point. And who knows? I mean, I think our death dates are determined. I really do. I think we come here with these wacky ass agreements, and we're here till we're here. And some have NDE, some don't. Some have trauma, some have, some really don't have as much trauma. I think everyone experiences it on some level, and so on and so forth. But really, it's interesting how they are using this in her experience. It's a little different because, from what I recall, the negative stuff isn't really there. And it even though she came in with things she wanted resolved that were inherently negative, like the love of her father, it still is being utilized as a tactic against her. So I know I keep repeating myself. I'm sorry, but it can't be stated enough how this one is panning out right now.
It was an emotional knowing. It is almost impossible to put it into words. And this review continued all the way back to my birth. I experienced my own birth all over again. It wasn't anyone's fault, but my mother almost bled to death when giving birth to me. She almost died. I perceived everyone's emotions at that moment, my mother's, my father's. I could see it all, including my own feelings. Then it went on. After my birth, everything went dark again. I was pulled into another suction draft. While in this dark void, I had a physical sensation of something that was attached to my belly button in the centre of my chest, as if a cord was attached to those spots of my body.
Now, see, this is what, I mean, astral projectors will commonly talk about as the silver cord. So, we kind of talked about this, I don't know, if a week or so back in an experiencer case where, you know, the agreement to come here, or the deception to reincarnate here, after we've already kind of agreed to the base entrance of coming into the whole system, it seems like we have these etheric overlays, and it could be there could be multiple of these things going on, including the silver cord. The interesting thing is some experience the silver cord and some don't, or some see it and some don't. That's an interesting thing, that's phenomenon that's out there. But I don't think it matters. I think either way, there is some sort of something related to the agreement that we made prior to coming into this incarnation that involves us being here for a certain amount of time. Now, what would happen if, say, one of us had an experience like this, or were able to kind of stand up for ourselves and leave? We don't know. I mean, that's the tough thing. It's like we're working with kind of limited information. All we can see are the mechanics of the system and how they work, and how there's a clear pattern throughout many different types of experiencer cases that funnel into the same freaking system, which show the Matrix, reincarnation, soul trap, unfortunately. But it's, you know, the best thing to do is that, you know, we got to ride it out. We got to ride it out and do what we got to do for ourselves. Make the best of this last time. Enjoy yourself, right? I mean, one of the things with sharing this information is I know it can, look, it really, I had to go through adjustment periods and everything myself, right? It wasn't easy. I went into denial and all sorts of different types of emotional states, and to try and explain it away. But like when the dust settled, I know that I was better for it, and I was more empowered, and that's all I hope that, you know, most, if not all of you can kind of get to. Remember that all they have are smoke and mirrors. That's all they have. There's nothing to be afraid of. It's to empower you. It's to say, hey, look, I see the attachments. I see the illusions. I see the games being played on me. But at the same time, I realize that I am a powerful creator being and can shut this all down when my time comes. And a way to expand upon that and experience is through things like astral projection, lucid dreaming, more specifically astral projection, but they kind of weave in and out of each other, to be honest. But you know, those things can help you. Heightened states of meditation where you can go outside your body. All these things are tools that we have available to us. It just takes some fine tuning, and some will fall into it a little bit easier than others. But like, if you need to prove certain things to yourself, the beauty is that these are things that you can use to do so and get to that point. So, you know, make the best of it, right? Enjoy yourself. You know, go out for a good dinner. You know, go to a concert, go camping, hiking, get some sun, you know, all this stuff. Don't allow this information to put you in the pits of despair. Please. That's the last thing I ever would want with this channel. I want you to just be able to be aware of it, but also still enjoy yourself. That's all. That's it. Don't give the system what they want. The last thing you want to do is, you know, hand over the loose trophy and you know, be shuffling your feet every day. There's so much more. You know, I know financially a lot of us are having trouble right now, but there's still ways to economically do things and get out and have some fun. It's just don't let it get to you. That's all, my friends. Please.
It pulled me upward in a swift motion, as if there was a magnetic force. My body was pulled backward, and my arms and legs were hanging. And I was lifted up by a kind of kinetic force. Up there I noticed a light, small at first, but which grew as I closed in on it due to this pulling force. I was pulled towards this light and sort of dissolved into it. I lost sense of my physical bounds. It felt like immersing oneself in pleasant warm water, but it felt less like water, more like wax. It was very subtle, as if I melted like wax. It was an intensely beautiful feeling, and that pull that I had felt opened my heart. I felt this powerful flow of love emanating from me and being poured into me. It felt like a massive exchange of pure love. I felt attracted to this stream of love and expanded into this light. It was ineffably beautiful. These were entirely new feelings for me. I had never experienced anything like this before here in my life. If I were to put it into words, it felt like sensing individual feelings we have here on earth, but those feelings being combined into one huge sensation. It amounted to this explosion of emotions, so to speak. These feelings comprised of being attracted to something, love, pure freedom, dissolving. I keep calling it a kind of orgasm, like this explosion of emotions, to which one completely surrenders and into which one dissolves. It is indeed impossible to put this into words because of its inexpressibly beautiful quality.
Let me briefly talk about the life review once more. Was it indeed a chronological sequence of events all the way back to your birth?
It wasn't a review of my entire life in every detail, but only those moments of intense love that I felt in a shared experience with other people.
In tiefster Liebe mit Menschen erlebt habe. Also da war zum Beispiel auch meine Eltern haben sich regelmäßig mit einem Mann getroffen in einem Restaurant.
For example, my parents would regularly see a friend. This friend loved me dearly when I was an infant, and he'd lift me up or put his arms around me. Such moments aren't about material things. I perceived the depth of this love that we shared. It was moments like this that came to the fore. I didn't relive receiving my first bicycle or events like that. It wasn't any of that, but rather moments of such shared love.
Which goes to show what really matters in life.
Probably so, yes. At least for me it is about those moments, indeed.
How did your near-death experience come to an end?
Of course, I would have preferred to stay in this light, because like I said before, it was the most pleasant experience I had ever had. But there was no kind of communication in this light. Out of the blue, I was being pulled back, and everything went dark once more.
So out of the blue, she was being pulled back. Now, she's gone through, remember, she was primed early on in this experience to, you know, hey, think about that and this one and that one, and all these things kind of unraveled in a certain pace. And at no point did she stick up for herself. So she kind of just went along for the ride and asked no questions. And this is where kind of the dividing line with everything occurs, right? The attachments, the soul group, all this stuff just piles on top of one another. And the Matrix takes advantage of our intention and ignorance and the euphoria, the love bomb, the drug dealing, all this stuff. It's sick.
I simply found myself in this suction again. I woke in my body in the hospital bed. I remember a cleaning lady next to me who was busy cleaning the floor. I wasn't aware of what had just happened. I had a vivid memory of this experience, but now I suddenly found myself back in my body and was unable to make sense of it at first.
Did you immediately become aware of your NDE upon waking up? Or wasn't it until later that you recognized the depth and breadth of this experience?
Also ich habe es nie in meinem Leben vergessen, auch nicht natürlich, als ich da aufgewacht bin, weil das ist...
I've never forgotten this later on in life, nor right at that moment, when I woke up in my body, because the experience was so strong. But at that moment, I was 19 years of age. I had no concept of near-death experiences whatsoever. I hadn't even known that experiences of this nature existed in the first place. I really had no idea of what all this had been about. I wasn't capable of sorting it out for myself. I'd suddenly experienced something like an alternate reality and woken back up to another, different reality. I was completely confused at the beginning. I wasn't able to make sense of it.
Did you get to talk about any of it with someone?
Also ich versuchte dann zuerst... Als mich die Ärzte besucht haben, versuchte ich das zu erzählen.
At first I tried telling my doctors about this when they saw me on their medical round. They listened but didn't respond.
Ziemlich bald darauf
Very soon afterwards, my parents entered the room.
Und da habe ich gemerkt, dass ich diese Wahrnehmung von
I noticed that my heightened perception of other people's emotions was still present with me. I noticed how deeply in shock they were upon seeing me, because I had 10 kilograms worth of liquids in my body. My body and my limbs looked like a tomato. Everything was bloated, and my skin was almost transparent, of a bluish hue and thinned. I wasn't able to move. I couldn't move my arms and legs. When my parents first saw me, they were in a profound state of shock, and I felt their shock. I felt their pain, and this hurt me too. I was almost unable to bear that pain in the beginning. I was unable to do anything about it and was simply forced to perceive all this. I simply reacted to them by trying to protect them and myself and asked them, please leave the room. Of course, I would let them back in later. I was unable to deal with this in the beginning, as it was an entirely new experience. The doctors returned with my parents, took a seat, and we discussed it all. The doctors suggested I receive tranquilizers.
Sie braucht ein Beruhigungsmittel und da meine Mutter Pharmaassistentin war und
As my mother was a pharmaceutical assistant, and both my parents believed the truthfulness of my account from having been there with their friend whom I had mentioned, my mother replied, "You can't possibly know about any of this. You were just a child, an infant." This man had died soon afterwards from cancer, so I never knew him growing up. However, I was able to give a detailed description of what he looked like, the restaurant where they had met, the exact location where they were usually seated. I had an exact perception of all of this. I understand that it was because of these details that my mother was opposed to the idea of having this medication administered to me. She said, "No, I don't want you to give her that medication because I have a feeling that she is telling the truth."
Well, that's a different sign, right? Most of the time, they get ransacked. You know, you have the system coming in. Hey, take this, take this. You know, what you're saying right here is complete horseshit. But Manuela confirms something that the mother knows. So even with the mother being in the profession, she stands up for her daughter and realizes that, yeah, she's telling the truth.
"No, I don't want you to give her that medication because I have a feeling that she is telling the truth." The doctors relented. I was offered psychotherapeutic support, where I was allowed to speak about my experience. But I quickly realized that this
was not met with a sense of understanding.
Exactly. They didn't know what to make of this information either. Since my story was from the very start never met in a spirit of understanding, I stopped sharing my experience altogether. I simply set it aside as best I could. But I've never lost my recollection of it.
How did your physical recovery proceed after the surgery? Did you take a long time recuperating?
At first, I was completely bedridden for 2 weeks. As I said, I was unable to move. A physiotherapist would massage me to drain the excess liquids from my system, to flush them out of my body. Later on, when I was permitted to stand up, it felt as if my internal organs, my intestines would fall out. I literally had to push them all back. I had taken out my large intestine twice and put it back into my abdomen. It's several meters long. You can't put it back in the exact same position it was in before. 2 years afterwards, my internal organs sagged. You have to imagine the esophagus, stomach, intestines like a long hose which dips further below if the conjunctive fascia and abdominal wall aren't strong enough to hold them. I walked bent over and generally had poor posture. I had anxiety issues as I was still very young. My recovery didn't go smoothly. I tried many different kinds of therapy and none of them really helped. I additionally suffered a diaphragmatic hernia because of this dip of organs. There was a hiatus hernia. The gastric valve was ruptured, and it resulted in an inflamed esophagus. I really suffered severely after my surgery. I felt very poorly for 7 years.
7 years. She felt horrible. This woman went through absolute hell. Absolute hell. I'm not laughing. I mean, it's just, I'm laughing at how ridiculously diabolical and sick and twisted the whole system is. You know, they gave her this whole big runaround, these amazing few experiences, and then boom, she's back here. You know, she's got, you know, organs being put in, taken out, put in, taken out. You know, I mean, 7 years recovery time. I wouldn't want to have anything to do with that. Oh, my heart goes out to her. It really does. It's so screwed up. What the hell?
I tried everything. I even considered dying. I don't mean suicide per se, but I was feeling really poorly. My quality of life was really low because I could neither sleep well nor was I able to eat properly.
Oh, can't sleep or eat well either on top of it. 7 years. Just heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking.
And since I had learned how beautiful the dying process was, I sometimes wish that I had instead died. Dying felt as if I was returning home. Everything that came after was almost nothing but pain.
Now, see, this is the big problem, right? So many think that the light is home. And for those that are kind of new or otherwise on the fence, or, you know, maybe just ran across this material about the soul trap, I think it's really important to say this. If everything is as advertised, you know, the light, you know, there's love, you know, God or source or the creator is looking out for you. If all that stuff is true, then it can't hurt for you at the time of natural death or leading up to and at the time of natural death to take control of you. Take control of you, go your own way, take the sovereign path, liberate yourself with non-interference, create your own realm, your kind of own area that is protected and incapable of being infiltrated, and just see what the heck happens, right? If everything is as advertised within the system, you can always go back. But the clear thing that so far, not just this video, but many videos that we've reviewed here on the channel, is that this system is jamming the senses. It's giving this amazing love bomb, and it distorts someone's ability to think clearly. That much we know. That's a fact. I mean, this is something we see over and over and over again. So it's a fact that this system is the equivalent of a love bomb drug dealer. Now, it might sound stupid or silly, but the point is, well, what if you just kind of go your own way, release your attachments, refuse to interact with the attachments of any kind, and, you know, go down the whole list that we just talked about, right? It can't hurt. There's nothing wrong with doing that. And if, you know, we're all wrong here together, then we'll figure it out. If, you know, if the God, source, creator is love and light, if it really is as advertised, then it can wait, a few eons before we kind of go crawling back to it, which I won't. But the point is, you know, it's not. What is it going to do? What is it going to do? Shame on you. Shame on you for not, you know, coming to your life review and hurling down the tunnel into the light and coming in to talk with me before you went on your own. How dare you? Remember, it's all loving. It's not there to judge you. So if it's not there to judge you and it's all loving, then it can sit its ass down and wait before it has to do anything. See, that's all I'm saying. There's too many unknowns. You know, again, I don't pretend to have all the answers. All I do see is deception consistently. and these patterns that kind of funnel into deception. But I don't know all the answers, and I don't pretend to know all the answers. All I know is that attachments are a huge part of this. Soul group is a huge part of this. Belief systems that are learned here on Earth, past lives are a huge part of this. Our continual, all these things. And even if you take one of those things out, there's still a lot there. And all of them funnel into the same system, and it points overwhelmingly to mass deception. So why not go your own way, do your own thing, and if everything is it's cracked up to be, don't rush back, but at some point, if you choose to, you can. But you can't forget that you come here lifetime after lifetime, memory wiped, not knowing where you came from, why you were here, or where you were going. Think about it. We all have been memory wiped. We don't know anything about our past. Nothing about our true essence. We're completely cut off from all of it. And even if you some people say, oh, well, I've gotten past life regressions. It's not, yeah, look, I've tapped into past lives too. I know I've been here for a number of lifetimes. I don't know how many, though. I don't know where I came from. I don't know other realms that I traversed and experienced before I came into this whole system. And that's the key thing right there. We don't know. We've been cut off from these answers. And that's why learning about the Matrix, reincarnation, soul trap is important. And zeroing in and proving this to yourself and seeing the deception up front and center. And the beauty is that we live in a time where we have access to all this information. But as long as you're just not taking each experience or account point blank as complete and utter truth, and instead looking at through the lens of like, hey, if I were to run some big, massive deceptive system, wouldn't I set it up as this? Remember, the system that we go to at the time of death is the same system that sent us here. It's the same system that, for all intensive purposes, have created this shithole. So you have to look at it through that. If everything is about love and learning and spiritual growth, then why do we need to come here? Why? We're already all-knowing and powerful creative beings outside of here. So why would we need to come here, be memory wiped, be thrown into a pretty pathetic meat suit with all sorts of failures, a parasitic system that rules down on everybody, and from everything we can tell, has been there the entire time. There is nothing in history that points to some utopian Earth. It does not exist. It doesn't exist. Now, could there have been pockets out there, this and that? Probably. But at some point, the system's going to move on in and destroy that. Just like it's done with indigenous populations all over the world. Anyways, kind of just ranting a little bit. I know there's a lot of new listeners and stuff like that. It's just give yourself the chance. That's all. It's like, I don't want it to be all doom and gloom. I don't. But it points towards mass deception. That's all I'm saying. So really, there's nothing wrong with you taking the sovereign path. That's all. Anyways, we'll go a little bit longer, then we got to take a break soon.
I had this profound longing to go back home. However, I would never have taken my own life. I wouldn't have resorted to that. I honor life too much. And I had experienced this greater reality, these other dimensions that are like a force that is not of me, but which was given to me and is controlled by something greater. That's how I perceived it. That is why I wouldn't have taken my life.
Aber ich habe dann halt einfach auch den Lebensmut verloren. Ich war stark depressiv.
But I had lost my sense of optimism. I suffered major depression and started a process of introspection and prayer. I thought to myself, if there really is something like a God, I conversed with God directly. I would tell him, if there was any purpose left to my life, then please show me what it is. I'm really at the end of my tether here. I tried everything and run out of resilience. I didn't know how to carry on. What impressed me was that 2 weeks after saying this prayer, 3 people mentioned yoga to me. I hadn't heard of yoga before and looked it up on Google. I then learned that it hails from a Buddhist and Hindu background. Growing up as a child, my experience of religion had been rather distressing, and I left my particular congregation back then. So when I first read about this, I thought to myself, oh no, this is about religion again. I don't feel like doing this. What I was not aware of at the time is that these were simply the origins of these traditional practices, that this wasn't about religion per se. I would say it's related to religion in that it is about provenance, religio in ancient Latin, literally saying coming back into yourself. It is more about that.
Religion, but not confession.
Exactly, religion but not confession. But the significance of this synchronicity was so apparent that I decided I would tolerate its spiritual origins and told myself this would be my last attempt at getting better. I happened to find out that one of my neighbours was a yoga teacher. I lived in a historic city centre at that time, and the buildings were very close to each other. While I usually don't go to the window and peer into other people's apartments, on that particular day I did. I remember it being rainy and I felt melancholic and sad. Then I saw her doing her exercises. Although she was of a more mature age and seemed to be retired, her movements were graceful. It was a joy watching her. And I thought to myself, this woman displays so much grace. She has made something of her life, her body, her anima. I, however, had become this disabled person after what had happened to me. I referred to myself as physically challenged. I was so impressed and emotionally moved that I went over and asked her whether she'd be able to do something about my physical condition. I was in really poor physical condition and of a low body weight. I weighed just 42 kilos because I could hardly eat and didn't feel well after eating. She then suggested I could start out by doing breath work. I wasn't able to join a class right away. I was simply too weak. I took private lessons with her for about 6 months, starting with breathing exercises. These exercises strengthened my diaphragm. I had much more energy and I improved quickly from that point. After those 6 months, I was able to move on to physical exercises. These then strengthened my entire body. After about 1 year, I had regained the degree of quality of life that I had been used to before.
Good for her.
This was the greatest gift for me I could have possibly received. Now all doors were open for me, and I had a new life all over again.
Now, mind you, again, 7 years. Look, 7 years of misery, or however long it was until she kind of got there. Maybe it was 6 years, you know, and it took a year to get her to where she felt better. The point is it's just not right. Just not right.
I had an opportunity to reflect on what to make of my life and my future.
How did things evolve for you on your yoga path after all doors had opened to you again?
Ich wollte schon seit Kind immer nach Australien gehen. Meine Eltern
Even as
Okay, what I'm going to do is take a break there. Kind of been going for a while, or almost like, I don't know, about an hour and 25 minutes or so. So I will be back here in about 5 minutes, and we'll wrap up the rest of the NDE. We've probably got about another half hour to go. So hang in there, my friends. Thank you for your patience. And tomorrow, before we head out to break, tomorrow we'll be getting together with Harold, most likely. And Harold might be in the chat. So hello, Harold. Hope you're doing well, my friend. That should be tomorrow, Saturday, or today, I'm sorry, Saturday, May 6th at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So keep an eye out for the stream on all the platforms. And I'll catch up with you in a few minutes. Thanks so much. Alright, welcome back everybody. Just as a reminder, this channel is for educational purposes only, or perhaps entertainment purposes only within the eyes of the law. Anyways, welcome back. Just as a reminder before, or another reminder, the Last Timers Club, stream levels and higher, will be meeting for the monthly members live stream on, this month's stream will be on Sunday, May 28th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's May 28th, Sunday, 7 p.m. And today, Saturday, the 6th of May, after the stream with Harold on pre-birth memories, that could be, there's no exact time we'll be starting. We'll be starting 30 minutes after the conclusion of the stream later today, which should be maybe between 6 and 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but that's like a rough starting time. So look forward to seeing some of you then. I also do have 2 YouTube backup channels if you're interested. And it's a good way for us to stay in touch. You know, notifications, I've been getting more messages from a few of you out there. At least more recently, it's been a little bit of an uptick on it, that you're not receiving notifications on YouTube. The best thing I can suggest is to select the bell to all. And if you have alternate platforms where you get notifications, or join alternative video platforms like Odysee or Rumble, I also announce the streams on Twitter and Instagram, and even Facebook about an hour, 2 hours prior to the show, sometimes a little sooner. So feel free to join us on those alternative platforms. So, you know, if you're not getting notifications on YouTube or elsewhere, you have something as a backup if you want to join the live streams. If not, then it doesn't matter. So again, it would be select the bell to all. What's going on here? Thing is acting up here. All right. Okay. Let's see. Oh, thank you very much, Careless, for your another very, very kind and generous super chat. I appreciate you so much. And also appreciate Ken Albert and UWU. Thanks so much. And T earlier. Thank you to all of you for your kind and generous support of the channel. Careless says, keep spreading the gospel of truth, Mark. There is no amount of money to evaluate what he's doing. Everyone, if you can, support Mark's work and help spread the message. Yeah, I mean, even if you just share the video, right? I mean, sharing, liking, commenting, all that stuff helps, right? I mean, you know, it helps trigger the algorithm somehow, you know? So, you know, every little bit helps. Doesn't even have to be financial, even just sharing. I mean, the most important thing I'm trying to do is spread the word. That's it. That's number one. And the only way we can really do that, and this channel isn't recommended all that often. It's mainly discovered through word of mouth. So if you have your own social medias or something, feel free to share it, or even spread the word in your own way, whatever it is. The important thing is to get the information out there to everybody. So thank you again. All right, let's get rolling into the second segment. And UW, I just want to let you know, I didn't forget your question. I'll be sure to get to that once we conclude the ND. We probably got about another 20, 30 minutes. And thank you so much for your patience, and let's get going.
Doors were open for me.
Die ich vorher hatte. Und das war für mich ein...
This was the greatest gift for me I could have possibly received. Now all doors were open for me. and I had a new life all over again. I had an opportunity to reflect on what to make of my life and my future.
How did things evolve for you on your yoga path after all doors had opened to you again?
Even as a child, I'd always wanted to travel to Australia. My parents, however, took no interest in Australia at all, but I'd always harboured this strong wish to go there.
That's a reincarnation drive right there, especially as a child. Always had this thing to go to Australia. That's past life right there. No doubt.
I'd always harboured this strong wish to go there. I would keep drawing palm trees, koalas and kangaroos, and I'd always say, I want to go there one day. My parents usually replied, you can go there when you make your own money and can pay for the trip yourself. It was always a dream and an inspiring force to travel there. It lived within me. Since I had witnessed how great yet how short life can be, and realised for myself what really matters, I now wanted to make this dream come true. So I sold everything I owned in Switzerland and obtained a visa for 1 year, a working holiday visa. It allowed me to find some paid work and pay for my education. I applied for vocational training at a yoga centre and completed the training there. From that day on, when following my dream and inner calling to really live and do the things my soul yearned for, I have this strong sense of being accompanied. I would go about my endeavours all by myself, because there was no one else in my life at that time to go there with me, and also because I wished to do things on my own. And after all, I didn't know exactly where this journey would take me. I simply followed this inner calling and went to the school.
Followed this inner calling and went to the school. So again, this is a matrix setup job. It freaking eviscerated her with her health problems for 7 years, and then points her in the path towards a certain spiritual direction. And well, lo and behold, what is it? Matrix spiritual direction.
Schlussendlich hat es dazu geführt, dass ich diesen Beruf erlernt habe. Zuerst Yoga-Lehrerin.
Eventually, this led to me gaining the proper training for this profession, as a yoga instructor at first. My teachers let me move in and live with them on their property for some time. They eventually retired and migrated to Thailand. When my visa expired, they asked whether I would like to go to Thailand with them. And since it felt right at the time to go along with them, I did. In Thailand, I met a medical doctor from Europe who ran a healing centre for yoga therapy. Amongst what she offered was training for an internationally accepted diploma in yoga therapy. At that time, this education was a pilot project. When I heard about this pilot experiment, I got very interested and went to see this doctor. I asked whether I could participate. I completed my education as a yoga therapist and additionally an internship at her healing centre after having obtained my diploma. Sometime later I had an accident. I really enjoyed being in Thailand and would have preferred to stay. A young boy on his motorbike rear-ended me. According to the measurement of the impact, I was catapulted some 12 metres from my motorbike. This resulted in a fracture to my shoulder, a multi-fragmentary fracture. I'd planned on staying in Thailand, but was told by my health insurance and for other reasons that I would have to return to Switzerland to get surgery, which would be complicated.
Und dann bin ich eben zurück in die Schweiz geholt worden oder geflogen.
I took a plane back to Switzerland and had an operation on my shoulder in Zurich. So my path continued here. I recuperated well from this incident. Owing to yoga, my recovery went really well. I stayed in Switzerland, also because I had fallen in love again. And I underwent basic medical training. During the period when I was unable to do physical work, I obtained the further medical education required to allow me to collaborate with health insurance.
Oh boy.
I felt that my life was accompanied. Everything evolved naturally. I didn't have to put much thought into anything, and this was certainly a huge blessing.
In your personal story, you have experienced the potential as well as the limitations of modern medicine. You have since arrived at a new understanding of the healing process, including by way of alternative medicine, for example. What ideas do you deem most relevant with regard to healing?
Indeed, I had experienced conventional medicine, and as I said, I've tried many different kinds of treatment, and quite simply realised that in my case nothing really helped. On the other hand, I became aware of which treatments did support my recovery, which were holistic aspects that aren't only about analysing. But I also find that I derived great benefit from a personal evolution, which involved integrating my illnesses into my general recovery process to a large extent, as well as acknowledging the aspect of my soul. I also had a strong sense of, what is it that I truly want? And I followed my inner voice in all of this. Today, I believe that healing generally involves a spiritual aspect. This is exactly what I experienced with my own body. I was rather sad to find that in my environment, I can't say whether this is generally the case, there wasn't a greater number of alternative healing techniques. And this inspired me to learn the skills necessary for applying such alternative treatments. I was convinced that I, as well as others, would benefit from them.
In your opinion, what are the most significant and sustained results in spiritual transformation caused by your near-death experience? Which topics became central to your life?
I would say an enhanced awareness and involving greater consciousness have become tenets of my life.
One of your quotes reads, "I sense a strong wish to alleviate human suffering." Is this another outcome of your near-death experience, or has this desire to help humankind always been an integral part of your personality?
Good luck with that. Good luck with that. You can see, she's got a beautiful heart, right? She wants what all of us want, to end human suffering. But the root cause is the system, the realm that we all reside in, the human body. The way the whole thing is set up, the deck is stacked against us, stacked against her. There is no beating it. There is no, well, at least beating it in terms of while you're in it, with the exception of knowing and getting to the point where you realize the illusion that this system has. But overall, it's very few see through the BS. And even though she's doing a lot of good and thinking she's doing what's right, it's pretty much a lost cause, right? I mean, we all want human suffering to cease, but so few will just like look at the flaws of the human body, the flaws of the materialistic experience, the physical experience, or how there are multiple worlds that connect in unison with one another and work together to keep this bullshit going. And that all of it funnels down to the veil of forgetfulness, the memory wipe, all of it. If we all weren't memory wiped, this system would have nothing. It would have nothing to work with. If it didn't have this limited meat suit of perception to work with, we would all figure it out. And yet it goes on over and over and over again. The biggest question I think we should all ask ourselves, and it's a logical one. How come, looking at how long humanity has been around, how come we have not gotten our shit together yet? How come? We haven't gotten our shit together yet because it's designed this way on purpose. There is a certain false hierarchical system that's out there, not just here, but in the astral. And it stomps on us every chance we get. Now, you may have a better life script this time or a worse life script this time, but either way, you're still going through the human experience within the realm, within the confines of the system that is presented to you that you have to work within. And that, at its root cause, is all based on suffering. Yeah, there's some good there. Again, it's not all bad, but the root cause is suffering. We can say loosh or energy extraction, extracting creator being abilities. All these things kind of, again, everything funnels into the same exact system. Suffering cannot be alleviated completely for humanity because it's designed not to. And that's just a sad state that all this kind of leads into. But there's hope, a lot of hope. Not even hope. There's inner knowing for all of us to find. And that's seeing the system for what it is and realizing that attachments are our downfall.
Hence a strong wish to alleviate human suffering. Is this another outcome of your near-death experience, or has this desire to help humankind always been an integral part of your personality?
I think this manifested following my NDE, because I had to deal with so much pain in the process. And I really wanted to get well. But I clearly realized that getting better didn't really work following conventional medical wisdom, until I ultimately arrived at a point where I was at a complete loss. My sincere prayer at that moment was like the breaching of a dam. A whole new world opened itself up to me. And then people showed up in my life who gave me a new direction. Everything opened up in a beautiful way.
What does your typical day of providing therapy look like today? What kind of people seek your help?
I'm a companion on my person's individual healing journey. They may not suffer from physical ailments. They may join a yoga class and acquire a more intimate knowledge of their authentic self, and take steps towards a closer relationship with their core essence, an enhanced mindfulness towards themselves. But I also offer assistance to individuals with specific ailments on their personal journey. Like I said, to me this always involves enhancing awareness. I believe that all suffering we experience points us towards something we need to learn and prompts.
Does not compute. Does not compute.
I believe that all suffering we experience points us towards something we need to learn and prompts a more conscious look towards that path that we should walk or are allowed to walk.
You also mentioned that it may be particularly important to resonate with your clients and get a good sense of what's important and right for them. How does this work specifically? Is this capability and sensitivity of feeling another person another result of your NDE?
Yes. As I mentioned before, this special sensitivity for the particular place another person is in was never lost following my NDE. As you mentioned, I can resonate more or less strongly. When I choose to resonate with someone, my perception of what I pick up can become pretty intense. But I also get to choose not to focus on this resonance as strongly. I sense less from the other person in that case, that's true. Of course, this helps a great deal with my work, absolutely.
Can you accurately tell whether those feelings you're picking up come from the other person or maybe emanate from within yourself?
I can differentiate my own feelings from those of the other person very well. At the age of 19, I wasn't able to do so. I had to learn myself at first how to deal with this. Over time, I'm 38 today, I evolved this skill, and today I'm very capable of discerning those feelings, because I have arrived at a more intimate connection with my true self. So when I'm really well settled within myself, I can easily discern my own feelings from those originating in the other person.
On your website, we learned that you had a strong relationship with nature, even as a child. You then trained as a florist, as you've shared with us. Today, you work with vital energies in multiple ways. By way of your NDE and the ensuing path you've followed, you've developed a closer connection with life per se. In retrospect, do you regard this long path as a consecutive sequence of individual steps with one leading to the next? Do you feel that you were guided?
Guidance sounds a bit like governance to my ears.
Yeah, it's, you know, when she said this the first time I heard it, it really made me wonder. It's like, guidance sounds like governance to me. Meanwhile, she's been guided every step of the way and openly admitted it. Can we just talk truth here? I mean, and just call it out for what it is? I'm not trying to sound like a cold-hearted bastard. It's like, let's just call it out for what it is. She's gone along with every step of the way. Everything. And here she is saying, oh, well, you know, you have these terms, and that's not the case. It's like, oh, well, you know, it sounds like, I'm answering to something. Yeah, you're answering to something. It's incredible to see that shift, isn't it? I don't know. Maybe I didn't explain it right. I kind of mumbled my words, but you get what I'm saying, I hope.
Guided.
Guidance sounds a bit like governance to my ears.
And that's exactly what's going on. Governance is exactly what's going on. Because, remember, she suffered for 7 years when she came back. I know we keep saying the same things. And then she found healing through a certain individual, got into yoga, and, you know, yoga is a whole nother conversation. You know, can't even go down that road tonight, but it's a deep topic, right? As is meditation, right? Like when you start meditating and you're being taught all sorts of techniques to learn meditation, and you first start kind of coming face to face with you and your spiritual connection to your essence and even the matrix, right? I'm talking about early on. These things, there are massive roadblocks put in your way, distractions, sometimes just flat out evil, right? And then the complete opposite, like the euphoria love bomb stuff. And then boom, the center. The void like experience where there's nothing interrupting you, nothing messing with you. I've had those experiences and they're absolutely amazing. But it took me some time to get to that point. But I got my ass kicked along the way. So it seems like for those of us that want to expand our consciousness, so to say, or, you know, tap into our essence or kind of get more answers as to who and what we are and what our role is in this place, there are certain things set up to prevent us from going down the sovereign path and not being interfered with. But, you know, you have to get your ass kicked before you get there. At least that's my experience. And, you know, maybe some of you are different. I'm not going to put words in anyone's mouth or how anyone kind of progressed on their own journey. But she was set up from the jump, and there's no doubt about it. And it's like she's like right there. She's right there. She's saying, "Oh, well, that sounds like, you know, like governance to me." Well, that's exactly what's going on. She's talking about it being a learning experience. She said that. So, which one is it? How do you know that the ones that are saying that this is a learning experience are speaking truth? Well, it funnels right back into the same thing over and over and over again. The powerful experiences that these individuals have, like NDEs or whatever it is, any type of experience, they're so powerful and they impact the individual on such a level that they're blinded to see, or blinded to seeing how this system is exactly what she's kind of, what we see here, kind of fighting against. Doesn't like the terminology and doesn't see the contradiction. Again, it's the no offense to her or anyone listening. It's just, that's just what it is. We're seeing it openly acknowledged.
Guided.
Guidance sounds a bit like governance to my ears. I'd rather call it having been attended to. There was a great number of situations where I had a sense of being protected and looked after. After all, I frequently encountered dangerous situations in my life, which I miraculously came away from unharmed. I strongly noticed some kind of benevolent force that quite simply looked after me, be it in some form of protection or by way of the opportunities I was presented with.
Opportunities that I was presented with. They're looking after her. Well, you know, here she is, you know, sharing her experience on a pretty big platform and getting the word out and hawking that everything is a learning experience. You know, we're here to learn. And then she's got, you know, her yoga classes or whatever else is going on, right? It's the Matrix marketing department up front and center. I mean, I'm sorry. It needs individuals to come back and share these amazing stories and, dish out a little suffering here and there. And then, boom, spread the word. Keep the scam going. Keep the deception going at a fever pitch, no matter what.
Or by way of the opportunities I was presented with, different options to consider, and ways to follow. I generally regard life today as a path for personal evolution, as a journey towards higher awareness.
Do you think that existence of the soul prior to physical birth is possible, and that the soul bonds with the physical body not just once? Do you think reincarnation exists?
Yes, I can very well imagine that. But this was not part of my life review during my NDE. However, what I came to experience was an insight into my strong yearning to go to Australia. I was given a knowledge that I had been there previously, and I met people who I had known from before. This strongly confirmed to me that reincarnation exists. And there were other experiences that corroborated this for me.
In summing it all up, life and the great experience of human existence is about evolving consciousness, and death is simply another transition. At the very least, nothing to be afraid of.
Exactly. Personally, I learned that death is simply a transient passage. A very beautiful transition. To me, it felt like coming home.
Ms. Fazzi, all the best regarding your projects, your therapeutic work, and cordial thanks for this conversation.
Thank you too.
Alrighty, my friends. So that's going to wrap up the NDE. I did want to get to a question before I head off. Getting pretty tired over here, but I want to get to UWU question. They ask, hello, do you have a video on disincarnate souls? I have talked about it before in a number of videos, but I can't necessarily direct you to one, unfortunately, because I don't have like a dedicated video to it. So that's the first part of your question. And the second one says, if we do reincarnate and we can't escape, do we become ghosts? What are the specifics? Okay. Well, from everything I see with the information out there, it seems that, okay, those who reincarnate fairly quickly are usually those who have passed in a violent way or an unexpected way. And a lot of times they are younger. And sometimes, even if they're older, their death is so unexpected that they didn't have a chance to say goodbye. It was so quick, they didn't expect it, and they have that attachment to usually their friends or family that are still living and their body, and they just want to make good in some way themselves. Now, I think everything comes down to intention. I think if you don't know what's going on here and realize that you are a powerful creator being and able to go your own way and do your own thing, that you could get caught in the quote unquote the hustle and bustle of the Matrix, right? Or even have the soul group attachments or attachments to your body, this or that. One of the things I like to mention fairly regularly is the importance of cremation. One of the topics I'll be getting into in this month's members video is cellular memory. Cellular memory. But it's really those that become ghosts, they're usually, it's temporary, or disincarnate souls, it's temporary because of trauma, and because they either, you know, want to stick around to support like their children or their wife or their husband or their parents or somebody, try and comfort them. But if you don't know what's going on here and your true power and how to kind of get out of all of that, and that's the first thing is realizing how this is all like this big grand material trapping realm and how it links to the astral, then it's easy to get caught up and give this place authenticity when it doesn't deserve it. So my suggestion, UW, is to, you know, do your thing and don't think twice about it, because have an unrelenting path forward that is not going to engage with any of this, right? Work on, you know, if you start getting kind of intuition that your time is near or something, you know, just do what you got to do to wrap things up in your life when that time comes. I'm not saying now, I'm just saying, you know, do what you need to do to clear out yourself and be content. Everyone has their own thing going on in life. Everyone kind of has things that they may or may not need to resolve. And my suggestion is to, you know, get any unfinished business out of the way. If you have any. If you don't worry about it. Or if it's not like a huge deal, don't worry about it either. But if it you know yourself better than anyone else. That's something I say regularly. We all know ourselves better than anybody else. So, you know, whatever's kind of maybe kind of eating at you or bothering you, or if it's something you feel that needs to be addressed, just get it over. Get it over with as best you can. So that way, you know, you're not rushing to wrap up your affairs if something should occur down the road. So that's kind of my thought on all that. But I hope I helped a little bit. I mean, the disincarnate souls, the ones that do stick around, there are organizations, there are groups out there that their entire objective is to help, quote unquote, disincarnate souls cross over. And it always involves kind of giving them a nudge to go towards the light. And there was even someone I was pretty close with. We haven't spoken in a while, but she had a spirit. It would kind of hang out by her staircase, by her front door. It was like an orb. She even showed me video footage of it. I mean, this was a while ago, 4 years back. And she talked about how she felt bad because she helped it cross over in light, she would talk to it and say, hey, you know, you're okay, you know, you can move on, this and that. Like, it was clear that the being was having a rough time. The disincarnate spirit was having a rough time, and somehow still hanging around her apartment, even though she was the one living there and didn't know anything about it. So, I mean, even, you know, it's egregious. Even the Monroe Institute has a whole course you can take on helping disincarnate spirits cross over. I mean, it's, you know, it's difficult, really difficult, because I mean, if you run into a disincarnate spirit or an orb or something or some sort of energy that's in your house, or that you kind of run across maybe at work or in your car, anything, right? You know, don't tell it to go to the light. Tell it to stand up for itself and empower itself. The key thing is always going to be non-interference, though. That's really, I think, the key thing in all this, shielding ourselves and dissolving our quote-unquote astral bodies, or the cord, and the cord, all this stuff at the time of natural death, so that there is literally no attachment. Remember, any and all attachments that are linked to us should be removed by our intention, so that there isn't this kind of buffer zone between us and our recapturing our true essence, our memories, and applying our intention correctly to get the hell out of here when the time comes. So anyways, hope that helped a little bit. I'm getting kind of tired here, so I'm gonna head to bed. We should be meeting back up together today with Harold. We're gonna be doing a pre-birth memory. It's gonna be part 3 of 3, the last of the series. So that'll be today, Saturday, May 6th at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is subject to change, but as of right now, that's the schedule. And then there will be a Last Timers Discord voice chat after the stream as well. So thank you, everybody. I appreciate you all, and please consider hitting the like button on the way out. It does help get the information out there. And if you don't mind sharing it, if you have some like-minded individuals who may be receptive to it, that's cool too. And I want to thank everyone again for their kind support throughout the stream, and members as well. And we will see each other again soon. Take care of yourselves. Don't work too hard. And in about 13-14 hours. Much love.